Thank you, everybody, for joining me this week on Authority. I have the amazing Dr. Angela Kingdon here. She is a TEDx speaker, which I am super excited to be able to say because that just happened. She's the head of the Autistic Culture podcast. She's an author, ghostwriter, late diagnosed autistic, and she has degrees in journalism and media affairs and used to run the author incubator, which has just closed. And that's actually one of the things I wanted to talk about, is because the reason she closed that is it's a story, and it's one that I think that indie authors really should hear, because too often we get wrapped up in the idea that Amazon is the one and only true way. We hear that from so many
Mm.
places, so many people, and I really want to break out of that stigma. I'm not saying that you can't use Amazon as part of your publishing platform or your plans, but it shouldn't be the only thing you do. And it might not be a good idea to have it be as big a place as it usually features for most authors too. So, Angela,
Mm.
thank you so much for coming on. It is so exciting to have you here. I've been
Yes,
looking
thank
forward
you
to
for
this.
having me.
Yeah.
I, I told you this before we started recording, but I'm a big TikTok fan. Somebody turned me on to you and was like, "You have to see what he's doing." And I checked it out. Oh God, it was before the ban. I
Yeah.
think I've been following you for like 6 months, and
Oh
it's
wow.
just been so fun to see the content evolve as the world falls apart. So you're
Hmm.
getting better.
Yeah.
That's the good news. We'll all be
Yes.
dead, but your
I'm
content is amazing.
I'm gonna be hilarious until I'm in the dirt, because usually in my experience, the more pain I'm in, the funnier I get.
Okay, well we all have some positive traits and some
Yep.
negative ones. So that's
Yep.
good. Then
That's
we're going to put that
absolutely
in
the
the
case.
positive column.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the author incubator and what it was, and then what led you to the decision to close that off. Because, like I said, it's a kind of a big deal, and it was very recent that you made that decision too.
Yeah, it was. So you mentioned I was a journalism major, and I'm going to make this story go way back. I started off as a journalism major, and my very first job was at the Washington Post.
Yep.
When I was at the Post, I also was working for some Pulitzer Prize winning journalists. I actually wrote about espionage.
Oh wow, I'll have to
Yeah.
ask you questions because I'm currently writing a spy thriller.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I know all the spy things. That was my first job.
Excellent.
And um and so I loved the Washington Post. Again, like first job when I did my master's degree, I did
Hmm.
a big study at the Post. I worked at the WashingtonPost.com when they first went online, and I was a big part of that team. And also was doing editing and research for espionage and political journalists, authors, investigative journalists. So that was all my 20s in Washington, D.C. And from there, I got tons of work as a ghostwriter, a book
Hmm.
doctor, an editor. I did a lot of co-writing political memoirs. So whatever candidate was running would tell me their life story. I'd turn it into a book. We had 30 days to turn it around.
Whew.
Weirdly, I also edited the Almanac of U.S. Politics for about 15 years,
Huh.
which is basically a website, but it was before the internet. So
Yep.
it was a book that listed like everybody's office, their
Hmm.
phone number, how to write them a letter as a constituent,
Like the
things like that.
original LinkedIn.
Yeah, yeah,
OG LinkedIn.
basically.
Yep.
So, um, so I was doing that forever. And then there was an article that Seth Godin wrote. I think it was a blog post,
Hmm.
and it was called The Golden Age of Publishing. And he told this story about how now authors were going to be able to self publish on what was then CreateSpace, what has
Yep, I
become
remember
KDP.
that. Yep, I've been in publishing since 2008, so I hit the
It was
early
right
part of
then.
that. I
That
was
was
right there
right
in
then.
that. I remember all of that.
And so I was like, oh, I've been doing this. So I started that career in 1994.
Hmm.
So I'd been doing it for whatever, a long time, 15 years that I
Hmm.
had been in publishing. And all of a sudden, and I had done some vanity press, like people who, I did a book called Aboard Air Force One. That was a guy
Hmm.
who worked at the White House and just wanted to write his memoirs and give them to his kids or whatever.
Yeah.
But I, but I had always kind of looked down on self-publish. I was just like
Yep.
a snot. Like
Well, I mean, a lot
publishing
of
is
people were
very
back then.
snotty.
Back also, self-publishing was almost inaccessible at the time. So anybody self-publishing, for the most part, were folks that were not doing it seriously at the time.
Right.
So
Correct. Exactly.
yeah.
And so all of a sudden, that Seth Godin article completely changed my mind. And I started a company that became the Author Incubator.
Hmm.
I gave it a terrible name. So we'll
Well,
leave it at that. But
we'll
it
just
became the Author Incubator. And over the next, let's see, that I started that in 2010. So over the
hmm
next 15 years, what I was doing was the same thing. I was doing
hmm
ghostwriting, I was doing editing, but my main revenue was coming from helping people publish.
yep.
And I could only do this because of Amazon. I would literally, I'm an atheist, but if I were saying my prayers at night, I would say my prayers to Jeff Bezos.
hmm
Like this guy, when the book, The Everything Store came out, like I was the first one to read it. It's like 1,000-page book with the story of his life. And I memorized every page. I'm
hmm
like, this guy is my hero. And when he bought the Washington Post, my beloved Washington Post,
Right.
I was like, whoo, thank goodness it has
Yep.
been saved. This
Yep.
is incredible. Like, and he said, I don't care if I make money. And I was like, that's great.
What a
It's like
service to
Facebook,
humanity.
it's free. What a service to humanity.
Yep.
And I have to say, I didn't see it. Maybe it wasn't there. I'm a good pattern matcher. Maybe something changed. But I think it must have been a week before the US election in November
hmm
was, to my knowledge, the first time Jeff Bezos ever got involved in a Washington Post editorial decision.
Yep.
And on that day, me and I think 300,000 of my closest friends canceled our Washington Post subscriptions.
Right, because
It's not a paper. I
yep.
can't pay for not a paper.
Right.
That's not what a paper is. That's not a
Right.
newspaper.
No,
So
that's yeah.
I know these things seem like the news. Like they seem so like who cares? Some rich guy says you can't publish an editorial saying we would vote for Kamala Harris. It seems so distant. This is so personal to me. It's my
hmm
first job. It is the city I live in, the city
Yep.
I love, the building I drive by every day, the man who I believed in and who like over 15 years. This is gross, not net. So it's going to
hmm
sound like a very big number, but that business made $50 million
Yeah.
in 15 years. We employed over 100 people.
hmm
We helped 2,000 people publish their books. We got over 2 million books into circulation.
Yep.
All of that was made possible by Jeff Bezos. And suddenly in November, it took me a tenth of a second as a journalism
hmm
researcher, graduate, student, somebody who's passionate about independent journalism. It took me 10 seconds to unsubscribe.
Yep. The red flag
And
was like neon in the size of
I was like, what is that? And I
yeah.
personally wrote to every single Washington Post reporter
hmm
handwritten letters saying you
Yep.
have to quit.
Yep.
I'm like, so sorry, because I know this sucks for you. And if you would like to set up a Substack, which we'll get into in a
Yep.
minute, I will for free donate my time and energy to help you set up a Substack, but you
hmm
you have to quit. You have to
Yeah.
quit. And it never occurred to me, and this is also going to sound ridiculous, but this is, I think, what it shows you when you are financially invested in something, how hard it is to see.
Yeah.
On that day in November, it never occurred to me I was going to shut down my business.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, Amazon's a different thing. It's not a newspaper, it's a commercial venture.
It at the same time, like you spend some time thinking about it, and then it's like, oh, 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 oh.
Yeah, you got it. You
So
did
I
it. Mm-hmm.
and also like I can speak from my perspective. I'm not speaking from yours, but being autistic, also I tend to trust that people have best interests at heart and tend to like rely on other people just being good people more than I really should a lot of the time. My
Yep.
instinct is to just trust people. So getting wrapped up in that trust of something that seems so good and all the press about him was so good and all this other stuff and but also
Books.
yeah,
Books.
right, books are good.
Books.
And like it,
Books
but at the same
are good.
time when we see those red flags and all of that goes off in our brains, it's so quick to just be like
Yeah.
It switches so fast. Like there's feelings involved. I'm not saying that there's no like emotion related to it because there's a lot, but it's so fast to be like, oh, no, not you, because the justice then kicks in, and then,
Yes.
yep,
It's justice sensitivity. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on.
mm-hmm,
What might that mean for me? What does that mean about my books? What does that mean
yeah,
about how much money if I've made
this
50
much.
million
How
dollars?
much have I made for him?
How much have I made for him? Wait, what?
Yeah,
What am I doing?
mm-hmm,
And suddenly it was like, now we're talking about a 30-year career
yep,
where I'm like, how, and I am still helping people with books. I'm
mm-hmm,
just, I'm not, I haven't taken my books off Amazon. I
no,
am
I
not
haven't,
putting my new book up on Amazon.
mm-hmm,
So I was like, I don't know how to do this because Amazon has wormed its way into every corner of my life.
oh yeah, like half the time there's things I cannot buy locally that I can only get from Amazon, like, and going to the individual manufacturer websites is
Mm-hmm.
a lot of time they don't even ship here, so getting things is hard. Amazon has just kind of taken over the world, kind of like Walmart.
Yeah.
And you can't get it
But I
like,
don't even think Walmart anymore. It
yeah.
feels like Walmart less. It's I can't believe how many things. So I have consciously, my New Year's resolution
Mm-hmm.
was to like weed Amazon out of my life. I'm giving
Yeah.
myself a year to do it. And even just buying like any clothes I've bought since January 1st, just clothes. I bought them on the manufacturer,
Yep.
whatever, on the actual website, not on Amazon.
Yeah.
Even that is so it's more expensive. There's
Mm-hmm.
not pride. I'm definitely spending a lot more.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you about my new book.
Yes,
So
please do. That
my
was on
new
my
book,
list of things.
yeah, so it's adult autism home assessment. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, how the hell am I gonna do a book without Amazon?
Yeah.
This is not possible. But do you know about Book Spy?
Book Spy I haven't heard of.
I'm so
Do tell.
excited about them. So it's books.by.
Okay.
And this was my, autistic research skills. It was suddenly my
Yes.
special interest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is the best way to do this? I also have
Yep.
an international following.
Mm-hmm.
Bookspy is an Australian company, but they have deals with local printers everywhere.
Okay.
They're a little more expensive than KDP author copies, but not dramatically.
How do they compare to Ingram? Do you know?
They are, yeah, it's about halfway in between Ingram
Okay.
and Amazon. So
Okay.
it's completely reasonable.
Excellent.
They set up a store for you, and there's no
Okay.
cost to set up a store. They
Mm-hmm.
take a percentage, but it's 10%, so totally
Yep.
reasonable.
That's a
Um,
an expected. I mean, that's less than
and
expected a lot of the time.
you own everything. Now, the problem is you're not sitting in Amazon, so you don't get to benefit from
Yeah,
people
the passive
buying.
traffic.
Yeah. But if you go to, and I'm not trying to sell my book, you'll see, even though my book is up there, it's just for you to look
I
at.
mean, no,
Don't buy it.
please do try
But
and sell your book, but it's not out just yet. Like, please do
right.
sell your
That's why
book.
I'm like, but you can see how it's set up. So it's books.by/autistic culture.
Okay.
And then I have the page set up, but it's set up for $200 for the
Mm-hmm.
book. I'm not selling it for $200, but
I
that
hope
is
not.
my, yeah, but that is so that people can see the page because I want to show
Yeah.
people what I'm doing. But also, I needed to have it up there to order author copies.
Right, and the price point is to discourage people from accidentally ordering in advance.
Yes.
I
Yes.
get
It
that. That makes
literally
sense.
says, please don't purchase this. Like, but if you want to give me $200, sure, go crazy.
Right, like
But that is not the goal.
if you're that much of a super fan, I won't turn you down.
Right. So, so yeah, I mean, I don't have this figured out yet,
Mm-hmm.
but the entire premise of the author incubator was made possible by KDP and how easy and seamless that is.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing now is not easy and seamless.
Yeah. There's a few places that you can do things. My brain is completely blanking on the primary one that I use where my books are. Uh, it shouldn't be blanking because that's deeply embarrassing, but it is. However, there are other places that aren't Amazon that you can upload and have your book be syndicated across multiple platforms
Oh,
too.
like draft to digital, that
Yeah,
kind of
draft to
thing.
digital. That's where they are. Thank you. My brain was just not.
That's okay. I have my books there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
They're great.
draft to digital is what I use. I'm on Amazon separately because in order to be able to run ads, you have to have Amazon separately because Amazon is like, no, you can't run ads if it's not, its own thing.
To us.
And
Yeah.
also you can't have an ISBN that is used in other places for the same book for the book that's on our website. I'm sorry, which is also really stupid. And in the US, ISBNs are stupidly expensive for literally no reason other than they can.
Mm-hmm.
Bowker,
It is crazy.
WTF,
Yeah,
guys?
Bowker is
Like,
and their
guys.
website was coded in 1992. It's very cute.
Oh yeah, it's nostalgic.
Mm.
I'm gonna say it's nostalgic. Like
Mm.
I turned 40 in a couple months. Nostalgia.
Yeah, there we go.
So,
There we go.
but yes, draft to digital is an excellent option. I know Shopify is out there that people are using and setting up stores that way, and there's this big groundswell movement that a lot of people are talking about. I know Russell Nolte is talking about it. Russell's great. He's such a darling. I've met him at Author Nation in Vegas and we hung out for a while. He's
So
such a
cool.
sweetie. Um, but there's a number of people. I know Shel Honecker's talking about it. Indie Author Magazine. There's a lot of places that are talking about this groundswell of direct sales,
Yep.
and
That's
that
what I'm
seems to
going to.
be.
I think owning your list,
Mm-hmm.
like the thing that Amazon gets, and I had to start thinking about this after the whole Washington Post thing, is Amazon gets all your customer information.
Yep.
You don't. So
Mm-hmm.
they know that your customer bought whatever book they bought. So I have autism books, but I also
Mm-hmm.
have books about writing.
Yep.
So they'll know, like, hey, Sarah likes books about writing and Maggie likes books about autism. I don't know that.
Yep.
I don't know about Sarah and Maggie. I can't follow up with Maggie and say, hey, would you like to subscribe to my Substack? I can't follow
Yep.
up with Sarah and say, hey, do you want my help writing a book?
Right.
So I think there are a couple things, just to be a futurist here, is direct sales, own your list, and this
Yep.
extends to social media too.
Oh
You
yeah.
gotta you gotta not be dependent. Like my whole business with the author incubator was dependent on Facebook. That's where we got 100% of our clients, Facebook
Mm-hmm.
and Facebook ads, and Amazon. And they were both run by algorithms that
Mm-hmm.
benefited me. And now I ask at whose cost?
Yeah, I'm currently most of my people get to know me on TikTok, like just like you,
Like
and
me.
right. But I've come to there's this Joe Solari. He's the guy who runs Author Nation, and one of
Mm,
his big things is don't build on rented land.
yeah.
And Tammy Labreck says the same thing. She's a newsletter ninja, and
Mm,
she's the own your list thing. It's a direct echo of what she says. So there's a lot of that kind of movement and thought process happening, and people who were both talking about it before this recent big shakeup, but also folks like you who are realizing that and now as this shakeup is happening, and I think that's really the future of where we're going is authors, because at this point traditional publishing still exists and there's a reason for it. I don't have any beef with traditional publishing. I, you know,
agree.
I
I
like,
still work with authors. I'm ghostwriting 3 books right now with
yeah,
traditional publishers.
right. Like it has they absorb the overhead for people who can't pay to have their books self-published, and not everybody can do the self-publishing thing for fiscal reasons, for emotional reasons, for a million reasons. But the idea of authors being their own brand and needing to be the brand is a thing that has become more and more of a talking point since self-publishing became a thing, because it's no longer just like I go to Barnes and Noble and whatever. People really want to get to know the authors. They want to get to know us in ways that they
Mm-hmm.
couldn't prior to the revolution of social media. Because like as a kid reading Anne McCaffrey, I knew that she lived in County Wicklow, Ireland, and I knew she had a picture in the back of her books. There wasn't even a website. Like that's all I knew about her, and I knew that she wrote about dragons and I loved her.
Right.
Right? Like, that's what I knew. And when I read Sabriel in high school, I knew that Garth Nix was a really cool dude who wrote about cool characters, and I thought he lived on Australia. I now know a little bit more about Garth Nix, but at the time, that's what I knew. It didn't matter to me. Now, people are like, I want to see what this person's like on social media, and Are they pulling a J.K. Rowling where they're posting awful things and have awful opinions that I should be aware of before I buy their books? Like, that's a thing
Right.
too. And
A
so there's this
100%.
revolution about us being a whole brand, which translates to direct sales. Like,
Mm-hmm.
being our own brand, well, then we need to run our brand. How do we run our brand? I'm on all the platforms on social media, just like I know you
Mm-hmm.
are. But
Mm-hmm.
if those went down, I've got my mailing list.
Right. Right. But I also think there's another thing, and this is why the way that we're releasing this book,
Yeah.
even though I have the books by page up. And in theory, if I figure this out and it works, it is
Mm-hmm.
possible I will like teach a class on this. Like, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
ready to teach anyone this. So if you are listening, this case study of one, this could be a disaster. I'm not
Neurodivergent
recommending.
Publishing Conference 2026, class from Angela.
Yeah, I was going to say, I will be happy to present this as a case study if it works, but this is what we're doing. So, first thing that we're doing is we are releasing one chapter a week as an audiobook and a print book on our Substack
Mm-hmm.
only for paid members.
Yep.
Then that does a couple things. You're going to get their email address, they're going to
Yep.
be a paid subscriber. They're going our Substack is $8 a month, but it could be
Mine is
anywhere
two.
from, let's
Yeah.
say, but yeah, are you on Patreon? Or
I'm not
you
on
no,
Patreon.
you're
Just
on
Substack.
Substack.
Yeah.
You meant also. Yeah, so I think Substack is like 5 is the minimum. I
Yeah.
think Patreon you can go as low as 2, and you
I
could
think
probably do
so.
this with Patreon. But to get our book happens to be 12 chapters, and to get
Mm-hmm.
our book out, that's going to be 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
or basically somebody to get the whole book from the beginning as it's coming out episodically, they're going to basically pay us 24 bucks,
Which
which
is
is the price of a
about,
book.
yeah, which is about the
Yeah.
price of a book.
And then our print copies with shipping and everything are about $10.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing is we're saying if you upgrade and you pay for a whole year,
Mm-hmm.
which is $80, so it's not quite, there's like that discount. And again,
Yep.
I'm using the standard Substack. It's not like
Yeah.
I've got some magical formula here. It's just the
Yeah.
default settings. But if they pay for a year, we will send them a signed copy
Mm-hmm.
as a thank you.
That
So
seems like it'll work. I don't see any reason that wouldn't, because if somebody gets the whole book one way or another, they're probably gonna pay about what they would pay to buy the book. And if they want to get, shiny print copy signed, then they get to get the shiny print copy signed, and it's definitely more expensive, but they still get the experience and the interactivity with you, which is
right.
part of what you're selling there.
Yep, and they'll get calls with us where we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about the book. They're getting the audio book as well.
Yep.
And everybody gets the ebook. So you get the
Yeah.
ebook. So for $80, you get the ebook, the audio book, the print book, plus calls with Matt and I. I think there's 4 calls with Matt and I, and the book is signed.
Yeah.
So that's not that dissimilar from what people would have paid on Amazon, because what we would have done is we would have sold a course with it.
Yep.
So we would have said, this is the model that I taught under the author incubator,
Yeah.
was get the course, get an audiobook. So
Mm-hmm.
once you buy the book, once you bought the book on Amazon, we had a
Mm-hmm.
thank you page with an opt-in,
Yep.
and the opt-in had a free short course, and then
Yep.
once you took the short course, it said get the audiobook and the
Yep.
long course, and it was a one-click opt-in for $97.
Yep.
So this is basically the same price for the same deliverable, but the difference is we're getting their email address up front.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say people are really mad. So the messaging is
Mm-hmm.
really tricky because people feel like they should be able to go to Amazon and buy a book. Even our current subscribers are like, why is this so hard? I'm like, you literally click on the link that says get the book, and it's just like reading a
Yeah.
post.
It's training people to behave differently is challenging when they're so set into things, and that just goes right back into our Amazon has wormed its way into everything, and people just, if you ask them to do something that's off of Amazon, shut down sometimes, which
Yeah.
is and I'm not here to shame anybody who's having that experience and that feeling. Don't get me wrong, that's not where I'm going with this. But as authors, we need to be aware of these things and they need to factor into our mental math when we're,
And messaging
yeah.
and messaging. So I have redone the messaging now
Mm-hmm.
to call the book a pre-release. So I
Yep.
keep saying the book isn't out yet.
Yep.
I'm like, the book isn't out yet. It is out, but it's only out for Substack
Yep.
subscribers. I don't know what I'm going to do, but my goal with every book is always to make $10,000 a book. And then
Mm-hmm.
everything else just feels like it's up on Amazon. Over time, I probably make another $10,000. I'm
Mm-hmm.
somebody that I write a book a year.
I'm in the same
It's
boat.
my
A book a year.
retirement plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I started writing a book a year when I was about 35.
Mm-hmm.
And if I write a book a year for as long as I can write a book, I'll be making roughly $10,000 a month from book sales. That is my entire retirement plan.
Yep.
That's the plan.
Yeah, and that's also something that authors I don't think about as much as they should either is where am I going with this later in life? Like what does my future look like? How do I build this plan to retire to be able to have a life after, I am done? What does that look like and how do I accomplish it?
Or can't
Or
write. I
can't.
mean,
Yeah.
physical things happen. What did I just see on
Oh
your
yeah.
wrist? You got
So
what's
I'm
going, yeah, is that like carpal tunnel?
yeah, I've got Ehlers-Danlos and the weather has been just murder on me the last like 3 weeks. I've had a migraine on and off for 3 weeks now, and all of my joints are angry. I'm having some carpal tunnel problems. It's just been awful.
The worst.
It is, in fact, the
And that
worst.
is something to know. Like a lot of us have EDS. I have
Mm-hmm.
hypermobility. I
Okay.
don't
Yeah,
think
that's a
I didn't
definitely there's a lot of
cross I
yeah,
didn't cross the bait and score threshold all the way, but it's definitely an issue. And I definitely get carpal tunnel. I get flare ups when I write.
mm-hmm.
I used to be able to swim and I can no longer swim. I mean, I
Yep.
can swim, but
But
I
yeah,
used to be able to like,
laps.
swim a mile at a
Yeah.
time, and my joints are not interested in that activity
Mm-hmm.
anymore. So, yes, as authors, we need to think about
Yep.
like maybe if you voice to text. I can't write as well voice to text. Can you?
I can't. My brain just doesn't like that. I did a talk at Author Nation last year about how to accommodate your needs as an author as you're flexing and changing abilities. And one thing also you may or may not know, you probably do, but with autism, EDS and autism are the
Mm.
genetics are like right there. So autistic people in particular, and I might catch some flack for saying this, but I've said it before. I have yet to meet a fully neurotypical author. I
Oh,
don't.
that's interesting.
I have never met somebody who
Ooh.
really dedicates to being an author. I've met plenty of neurotypical people who want to write a book,
Ooh.
but the
Yeah.
people who really dig in and become serious authors, I don't think there are too many because the profession is just too perfectly tailored for us.
Mm. This is true. I
Like
get the
that's
distinction.
like I can't put any hard data to it, but like I don't think I've met too many who are just fully neurotypical who don't have at least and maybe not enough to be diagnosable, but definitely enough neurodivergent traits that they enjoy being alone and hallucinating by themselves all day and don't get
Right.
bored. Like
Right.
that's one of the requirements for what we
Hmm.
do is living in our
True,
so
true.
deep in our own heads. So that's my opinion. I can't back it up, so please don't set my comments on fire. If you're neurotypical, I don't I'm not trying to say that you're diagnosable or anything, but maybe.
Yeah. But maybe take a
But
quiz.
or like see if you identify with anything. Like if you start seeing things that are like, wow, I kind of feel like this. Oh, like maybe look into it. It's okay. It's and even if you never get a diagnosis, self-diagnosis is valid. It's just as valid. Like the Washington State University, that study that they did where it proved that self-diagnosis is seriously like almost as accurate as clinical diagnosis for autism, particularly.
Mm.
I have a close friend of mine. She's a neuropsychiatric nurse,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah.
she's an LNP, so she knows what she's doing, and she is very, very like fiercely in the science space talking about self-diagnosis, and she works as a diagnostician here in New Hampshire. She's great. I should introduce you to. Like, I think you'd get along.
Yeah. You know this is actually the other reason I'm waiting on publishing. I'm doing a dissertation right now, and I'm actually studying self-diagnosis versus medically diagnosed people, and a couple things like what their special interests are, if they're
Mm-hmm.
different or if they're not different, and how many hours a day they spend in their special
Okay.
interests. And comparing, so my control group is non-autistic people, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
comparing self-diagnosed
Yeah.
to medically diagnosed on 15 different traits, on
That's so
validated
neat.
measures, and the answer is there are no fucking differences.
That doesn't surprise me in the slightest
Right.
bit. Like, not even a little bit.
But
Because
you have to
anybody who's
actually
gonna,
say it. Like
yeah.
in science, you have to say it, like, and
Mm-hmm.
prove it and have fancy
As well
charts,
you
but
should.
we all know it, of
Yeah.
course. Like,
Yep.
I've met those people, they're no different.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's the the, the idea that a doctor can tell me something about myself that I don't and I cannot possibly know that about myself unless it's like you have cancer in a place you aren't aware of, like that kind of thing,
Sure.
sure. But when it comes to psychiatry, generally speaking, I might not be able to know the diagnosis, but I know there's something going on.
Right. Or
Like,
like, imagine if we had to go to a doctor to get a diagnosis for left-handedness.
right, like,
Like, instead of just like lean forward and see what foot juts out in front of you,
right.
or pick up a spoon and see what hand you want to pick
Yeah.
it up with. Like, that's what it is required to to
And it's
know.
not like there's like any kind of medical treatment for autism or any kind of like treatment in general. We're not going to talk about ABA that can stay in the corner over there.
I was gonna say, you can tie your left hand behind your back, and if you accidentally use it, we can smack you with a ruler. That's basically the treatment.
Oh, so let's revert to the early 1900s and
Yeah.
before. Got it. All right, cool. Go
Okay,
backwards in time.
good
But like
plan.
the only treatment I've had that's worked is unmasking and learning who I am and accommodating the needs I have without feeling bad about
Hmm.
them.
Oh, and I wanna see what your take is on this one.
Okay.
And right,
Yeah,
don't you
writing.
think writing is, like, to me, writing has been my best treatment?
So, my main character in my book series, or one of my two book series, is a fallen angel who is heavily autistic coded. I wrote
Yeah.
that character before I was like I knew I was autistic.
Before I was
Had
autistic.
any idea. And everyone's like, "Oh, you wrote this great autistic representation." I was like, "Cool, didn't mean to, but I'm happy to represent people." And then my friend comes to me and said, this being the friend I told you I need to introduce you to, came
Mm.
to me and said, "Hey, since I've known you since you were 6, you know how you do all these things? You probably should look into this." And I was like, "Oh." It was it was a
Hmm.
whole revelation.
That does explain why I wrote an autistic character.
Yeah, I was like, because the character, I wrote the things that made, also the character has literally never been on Earth before and doesn't understand anything. So,
That's so perfect.
right, it's absolutely perfect. The character's also non-binary because gender's wibbly, and it was a whole thing. And
Timey-wimey.
yeah, it's a mess.
But I think, I don't know if you've read any of the Holly Small, like Cassandra in Reverse. She did Geek Girl.
I've heard of her, but I haven't
Yeah,
read
Geek
her.
Girl, I think, is a series on Netflix, but Cassandra in Reverse was when
I've
she
heard
was
that.
going through her diagnosis. You should read it, it's so fun. And Catherine May with
Hmm.
The Electricity of Every Living Thing. It's a
I haven't heard of that
memoir.
one. That's awesome.
So both of those books were written like during and after a woman with a late in life
Hmm.
diagnosis. And obviously, a lot of people going through a late diagnosis read these
Yep.
sorts of memoirs, but
Hmm.
and that's great. But I always look at it as a writing coach from the writer's perspective. I can see how much both of them, one is fiction, one's a memoir, but how much both of them were able to process all these times they didn't fit in,
Yeah.
things didn't make sense. Cassandra in Reverse is, she goes and replays scenes, and like, what autistic person,
Hmm.
especially if you have rejection sensitivity, doesn't like want to
Hmm.
redo that scene, like,
Yeah.
oh god, that scene, I
I should
still
have
have a
chosen a
scene I'm
different dialogue
replaying.
option.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
that's the
agree.
whole premise of the book, is she
Hmm.
gets to redo things until she gets them right. And like, without giving a spoiler here, is at first she's masking,
Yep.
And she sort of gets it, right? And then she realizes the only way to redo them is unmasked. And to be truly unmasked, you don't have to redo them. And I'm like, oh, you just processed all your late
Yep.
diagnosis trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I agree on masking, but I would like to, if you are someone who is attracted to writing,
Oh yeah.
might I recommend like getting your own angel character, out of this
Yes.
world character, Cassandra character,
Yes.
and process your trauma while hopefully making money as an author.
I think a lot of writers do that. Like, I think a lot of writing, one of the reasons it's so relatable to other people, my tagline on my website is I tell stories to tell the truth.
Mm,
Because the
I love
stories,
that.
right, the stories themselves aren't true, but what they're about is.
That's true. Yeah, that tickled my brain. I love that. That's
Yeah,
fun.
and that's how I view it is I'm telling stories, yeah, sure, but that's why writing matters and that's why stories matter because we connect with these stories and they are teaching us and telling us truths about ourselves, about our worlds, about society and culture, whatever it is. So all of these experiences go into book writing and processing your emotions. I know I've been editing for 17 years now. I've worked with a lot of people, and the most powerful moments in stories are when somebody is writing about themselves,
Mm,
sort of.
true.
I
True.
was recently working with an author, and the most powerful scene in his book was the character watching the Twin Towers fall.
Oh wow.
And the main character was in New York City. He was a finance guy watching it happen. And
Mm,
the author was there and experienced that get the hell out of Dodge, get off of Manhattan, all of that. And it was the most visceral scene in the book.
wow.
And you can
Yep.
tell when some, and other authors I've worked with have written about characters enduring abuse or psychological problems. And you can tell that the person has been there.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can write fiction, but even if you're writing fiction, it has to come from a place that's real. Because if it isn't,
Mm-hmm.
it's not gonna come across. It's not gonna land. Like it won't really
Mm-hmm.
land. Like that's my little soapbox on that.
Yeah. No, I think that's part of, I don't know, I always say, because it's not always sad, but when I write something that makes me cry or read
Mm-hmm.
something that makes me cry, it's touching
Yeah.
some part of truth. And like in that, there is some sort of healing, wholeness, ability to
Mm-hmm.
unmask. We talk about unmasking like it's easy. Like, oh, I'm
God no.
going to take off my dress today. Like, oh, I'm just
I ended up
unmasking.
no, I
That's
ended up in
hard.
inpatient. I ended up in inpatient psychotherapy at the beginning of this year because of things related to unmasking and the alexithymia and like suddenly
Mm,
feeling everything. It was like somebody took a dial in my brain and turned it up to 11, and I couldn't cope with it anymore. And
yep.
it's so difficult and painful. I mean, it's worth it. I wouldn't want to stop doing it because it's necessary for my health and well-being, but taking all that repressed stuff, it's not like it's, oh,
Well, because
I'm
you
just going to
can't
sit here
just,
and stim and be cute. It's not like that. It's I'm going to
right.
feel everything I didn't let myself feel for the last 37 years. Holy crap.
Yeah. The thing is, it's almost like we imagine unmasking is happening in a land of people that are accepting it.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, you're going to do this activity, and many of the people you love most in the world will now begin to either treat you like shit or treat you like a child.
Yep. Or they
Like
won't
I, one
understand
of the
what's
things,
going on and be frustrated and angry or hurt worse. Like they might be hurt by things
or
because
think you're
suddenly you're different.
faking it.
Yep. And sometimes it's not even just like malicious stuff. It could just be you're not the person I knew. I don't know what
Which
to
is
do with
true.
this feeling. How do I process that? What do I do with this experience? Like that's a and it's not even necessarily I don't
Wrong.
like you, I don't care about you, and they aren't entirely wrong, but it's also it I compare it to the trans experience where I'm still the same person just because I use different pronouns or wear different clothes or whatever it is. It's still unmasking is still me. I still
Mm-hmm.
have all the same likes that I did before. I'm still ridiculously into what I'm into. My special interests be my special interests and always have been. But now people are seeing more of what it's like to be me rather than the, you know, box that seemed like everybody needed me to be in order for me to have friends and family or anything. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a heck of an experience.
And it is a lonely experience, and characters are an amazing uh, force for company
Yes.
when you're not sure who you are, because there's no way to go through this journey without having an unknowing.
Yeah.
And I think in writing, it can be safe to be in that space of not
Yeah.
knowing or
And
necessary.
or sometimes I've actually found that I've had characters give other characters advice or show them gentleness and tenderness in moments that I needed. So it was like I was receiving that, even though it was from
Wow,
myself.
that's cool.
So it's like giving yourself, like, you're writing a character that's the raw, broken, damaged little kid version of you, and you're also writing a character who's seeing that and comforting it and surrounding it with the love that you should have received. It's kind of also a healing experience too.
Yeah, that's
So,
very cool. That is very cool.
like, it's not in lieu of therapy. I don't advise that people
Right.
do that instead of getting therapy. Please get therapy if you need therapy. But it can be a really healing experience to give that love to the part of you that needed it when it needed it.
Yeah, I will agree.
That is something I have explored and experienced. I This has been a phenomenal conversation. I have really enjoyed spending time with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing more about your book, The Adult Autism Home Assessment: Your Guide to Definitive or Accurate Affirming Self-Identification. So,
Yes. And if you want to ride along and just sort of watch what I'm doing, even I don't know how many people are not autistic and are here, um, but even if you are not autistic or if you're not interested in the book, if you go to my Substack,
mhm,
everything you won't be able to see the paid stuff, obviously, unless you
mhm,
subscribe,
yeah,
but Substack has these paywalls, so you can sort of see
yeah, you
what
can get
I'm
a
doing
snippet of
and
what
the
the
sequencing.
yeah,
Yeah, I think right now what's happening are direct sale models are
mhm,
evolving.
yep,
And I don't know exactly if what I'm doing will work, but I know a version of it will. So if you just kind
yeah.
of want to watch someone doing that and you're thinking Substack might be a way you want to go, yeah, come see how I'm promoting my book on Substack.
Definitely. I this podcast goes on Substack, so I'm already
There we
on the
go.
bus. So,
Love it.
yeah. So I thank you so much for being here. This has been a tremendous time, and I'm really looking forward to your book. If you're watching this, check out links down below. I will link you to Angela's things, and you can see all the cool stuff she's doing and keep in touch with her. So thank you so much, and I hope you have an excellent week, and we will talk again soon.